Well, we've gone a considerable distance down the path now, building our design and a fairly detailed 2D view of the design. But there are some clients who want a 3D model. They can't interpret 2D plans terribly well, even if you do provide sections and elevation diagrams. And to make it easier to work in a 3D environment, gCADPlus gives you the ability to export information from it into programs 3D modelers like SketchUp. There are other 3D modeling programs, but SketchUp's a very low cost and powerful tool to do that. So to export information is gCADPlus and make SketchUp layers is the first step. We want to lift from the design just the bare bones of the design. So I've turned off all the plant symbols and other extraneous information like dimensions and so on. I'm just going to select those items that will give me a base in something like SketchUp so that I can pull up and build my 3D model. And we've selected all the entities we want. Now we hit the Enter key, and you may not be able to see easily, but down the punt it says, would you like all the plant names that's in the schedule transferred to a layer called SketchUp text? Well, we'll say yes, even though in fact I haven't updated my list terribly well. And what's happened now is that all the other layers have been turned off, and we're left with some information that we can now export to SketchUp. We'll have a circle and the name of the text for each symbol, but we'll have the bare bones of the structure, and it will all be full size and accurate. So in SketchUp, it'll be relatively easy to work with. So we have one other tool, which is to write the information out to what's called a DXF file so that we can put it into SketchUp. So I'm going to write the file off now, and I'll put it in a temp folder, and we'll just call this to SketchUp. So we'll have what's called a DXF file in our temporary folder called to SketchUp. Takes a little while to do. That's now happened. At this stage, I'd go back to my layers. I'd right click and I'd say turn the visibility of all layers on, and then I'd come to my SketchUp layer, L SketchUp and text layers, and just turn those off. So we're now back to our design, and we can turn our layer groups on and off at will. So we're now in a position to move to the SketchUp environment and to take that base information and build a 3D model. Well, here we are in the SketchUp environment. So all we need to do is click File and Import and change our files of type to DXF, scroll to our temp folder and pick up that file that we just wrote out of gCADPlus, and that'll be brought into the SketchUp environment as a single entity and a planar entity at that. So we can pick the Orbit tool and orbit around, and then the Pan tool and pan things up. So here's our design. You may remember we had a rectangular step at the beginning. So it's a very, very easy matter to pick SketchUp's rectangle tool, and rectangle just attaches itself to that step. We could use the push-pull tool and say, let's zoom in, and we'll make that step, say, a 50mm high step. So we're building our 3D model. These are little stepping stones, wooden stepping stones or whatever that move through there. So we can use any of the SketchUp tools to draw in this environment, and because the geometry is already there, it becomes a relatively easy thing to do. If you know SketchUp reasonably well, you can use layers in SketchUp to clean things up. We don't want these circles at the moment. That they give us the position where we will put our symbols. It's useful to have the location to do it, but to build the 3D model, we'd want to work on the existing geometry that's there. Now this particular design, let's pan up a little, has, if you may remember, a back wall screen that's a little flexible. So you'd be picking the line tool and just picking up the corners and working your way along. Can you see that I'm able to draw this relatively complex shape? It's not a pure rectangle, is it? And I'm finding this very, very easy to do because that won't bother us too much. The geometry is already there. So as we do that and pick our object selection tool again, we've now got our backing screen with its flexible sort of surface. So we can use the push-pull tool to select it, and pull it up. And see it's got some striations on it, which we can remove later if we need to. They correspond to the sample points that we had in the original drawing. I've quite forgotten how tall we made that. I think it was 1200 mil. But remember, we're going to have to shift that up, that whole structure up. So I'd be turning that into the equivalent of a block, which is a component. So I hope you see that in the SketchUp environment, it's very easy to build a 3D model because the geometry is there. We've not had to worry at all about any size. I would do exactly the same with our decking in here, but I'd turn each one of those into a block and then copy the block across. I'd get the elevation at the right level and then move across. So once you've got a 3D model like that, it's relatively easy to dress it all up.